Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Gems for Gems Hope in Hell. My name is Laura Lee Harrison, and I am a Gems ambassador. We have come a long way from the days before #MeToo, when Gems would be contacted regularly saying that most women who say they are abused are just saying that to get back at their ex. We have gained much acceptance of the reality that people are being abused across the street, in our neighbors' houses, and even often within our own families. Yet, we as a community still struggle to understand the varying forms of domestic abuse, their lasting effects on brain chemistry, self-esteem, and the future impact on all victims, including the children. Yes, even if they just witnessed it. Hope in Hell has been designed to show the different forms of abuse, but also to show that no matter how bad things get, there is always a hope in hell. These stories are real-life accounts of abuse from male and female survivors who got through, clung to hope, and have now built a sustainable life. Some accounts will be read instead of an interview, as many survivors continue to live in fear of their abuser, because although they left, the abuser often doesn't stop doing everything in their power to hurt their victims. For many, it simply never ends. Today on Hope in Hell, we have our third anonymous author. I was 19 when I met him. He was so kind and sweet. We started dating, and he was nothing short of amazing. He made me feel safe. He complimented me all the time, took care of my needs, and supported me in whatever I was doing or dreaming of. We dated solid for about 2 months, and it was so good. No man had ever treated me so well. I was feeling lucky. Things seemed to be getting more serious. We were spending so much time together one-on-one and less time with friends. He had met my family at this point, and there was a little pushback from them as he was 5 years older than me, and they just didn't like him too much. He started calling 5 to 6 times a day to see what I was doing and who I was with, but always made it seem as though he was just making sure I was okay. He didn't like it if I was out with friends without him. He said he couldn't protect me if he wasn't with me. He trusted me, but not other men. And also, he said he thought my friends would badmouth him to me since I wasn't seeing them as often anymore. He told me that if I loved him, I wouldn't put him through the stress of worrying about if I was safe. I loved him, so I stopped going out with my friends. 2 more months had passed. There was a time when I missed 2 of his calls and remember how scared I was of the outcome. When I tried to return the call and there was no answer, I was hoping he had fallen asleep. I climbed into bed and 10 minutes later my phone beeped, and I got a text from him saying I needed to get outside. He had driven 45 minutes to check up on me. I rushed outside to see him, and he yelled at me to get in the car, and then he locked the doors. This was the first time he was physically violent with me. He threw his arm across my throat and held his arm there firmly and asked who I was with. I told him it was only family and explained why I missed his call, and he just kept yelling that he couldn't trust me and that I had betrayed him. He had my head pushed up against the headrest, and I started sobbing. That's when he released his arm from my neck and started apologizing, saying he didn't mean to get so angry and that he just loved me so much and he was scared that I had betrayed him or that I was hurt. And if I had just answered his call, this would have never happened. I took ownership of it because I could have taken my phone with me when I went to shower, and I could have answered. He eventually let me get out, and he went home for the night. The next couple of weeks, he kept bringing it up and telling me that I had to prove myself to him. He said that if I truly loved him, I would cut contact with everyone and allow him my passwords and my phone whenever he wanted it. And I did. I did anything to avoid the yelling and derogatory things he would say to me and the threat of physical violence. I was sick one day from work, and my boss had called me to see if I was okay because he saw my boyfriend in the parking lot at my job. He would frequently do this to see if I was at work when I said I was. I called my boyfriend and I told him I was homesick. He came to my house, slammed the door open, and searched the house, yelling and screaming that I was a slut and that he didn't believe that I was alone. Then he physically assaulted me. He was mindful to hit me where my clothes would cover any bruising, like thighs and torso. He then forced himself on me while I was crying out and telling him to please stop and get off me. He told me it was his right as my boyfriend to take what he wanted, when he wanted it, and proceeded to pin me down and rape me. When he was done, I was sobbing and shaking. He apologized again while he got dressed and said it would never happen again, but it was my fault that I made him so angry and that it was his right. Then he left. I became very withdrawn and sheltered from everything. I put on a fake face for work and acted casual with family when I was allowed to see them. He was monitoring my computer and my phone daily. The coercive control and isolation were already mastered. The emotional abuse became worse with gaslighting and how he told me all the time I was damaged and messed up and no one else would want me. I was at my lowest of lows. And then it happened. I was pregnant, 3 weeks to be exact. Pregnant at 19 and in this hell of a mess with a man who was abusive and controlling everything. I knew that my family would not be supportive of this, so I didn't tell anyone. I no longer had friends to talk to because he made sure those ties were all damaged. When I told him, he was very angry. He told me I needed to terminate the pregnancy, and when I opened my mouth to respond, he told me he knew everywhere I went and it would only take a small hit from the car to ensure I lost the baby. I was terrified and in shock. I remember him yelling and throwing stuff around the living room, but I just sat there frozen. I called and made an appointment the next day and was booked in to terminate the pregnancy the same week. I called him and I told him, and he said, "Just tell me when it's handled." I took myself there and back and went through it all alone. Thankfully, I never heard from him again after that. I didn't share any of my experiences with this man to anyone I knew or what I had just gone through. I became super depressed. I didn't know who to turn to, and I didn't think anyone would believe me, and if they did, they would judge me. And I didn't want to feel pressure to report him. I didn't know there were any other resources, and because he didn't hit me all the time, I didn't think it was that bad. I held everything in for close to 6 years, until I held my child for the first time. That's when I realized that if I wanted to be the best mom I could be for him, I needed to work on healing myself. I sought out counselors and energy healers, regression therapy, hypnotherapy, and some self-improvement courses. I built my circle of friends back up and shared my experience with a few of them. It took time to heal from it and learn that I wasn't alone and that coercive control, manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional abuse were all considered to be domestic abuse. I always thought domestic abuse meant it had to be physical all the time. Once I realized that this wasn't my fault, I started to believe in myself again. I started to find ways to help in the community, and I found safe places to share my story, knowing that it may help someone else. I learned about healthy relationships and what I required in a relationship and what I would allow energy-wise around me. I learned how to listen to my gut instinct and how to look for red flags while dating. I learned and experienced that sharing my story was scary, but on the other side of fear, there was growth. It got easier with time. I wish there would have been more resources back then that would have been known or available to help me through navigating all of what I had experienced sooner. Somewhere I could go or something I could be part of to feel empowered and supported instead of victimized and isolated would have been so much help. I did figure things out, and although it may have been the long and hard way, I learned so much. There are many more tools and supports in place now, and more understanding around domestic abuse, which in turn, I believe, allows others to feel safe enough to speak up and out about it. Thank you for listening to Gems for Gems, Hope in Hell. Gems for Gems is a registered charity focused on ending the cycle of domestic abuse through providing empowerment and scholarships to survivors. Our goal is to help survivors achieve personal and economic recovery to create lasting sustainability outside of abusive relationships. Gems for Gems has many ways for you to contribute to our cause. We have an empowering swag line through which every dollar you spend will be put directly towards our scholarship program and our newest initiative, Hope's Cradle. Please visit www.gemsforgemsswag.com. There are Donate Now buttons on our website, and as a registered charity, we can give tax-deductible receipts. We also have our ambassador team. If you would like to become more involved and help our organization achieve its goals from the inside, please visit our website, www.gemsforgems.com, and learn more about Gems for Gems. Please tune in to our next story and share this one with anyone or anywhere you would like. We can show every survivor, current victim, and community member that there is always a hope in hell, one story at a time.